Hello, and welcome to Couples Date Night. My name is Akwesi Opong, and it's a great privilege to join you again for another time to share something about relationship and marriage. I hope you've all been well, and your families and your relationships are all going great. And I'm very excited to come again to share something with you today. And without me wasting a lot of time, I want to dive straight into what we have today. And today, I want to talk about how to create a positive environment for your marriage or your relationship. As you all know, when you have a backyard garden, here in North America, we are heading towards the mid to the end of February, and I think at this time, those who are very good at planting and having a backyard garden are probably making plans to as to what they're going to do this spring. I understand it's you start planting indoors, and then somewhere in May, when the last frost comes and goes, you transplant them out. And the reason I'm referring to planting here is that the soil in which you plant is critical in making sure that the produce you have will grow very well and thrive. And I think it's not any different when it comes to our relationship, that to make sure that the environment in which our relationships are growing has to be conducive in order to have a great one. And today I want to talk about this very issue. There was a story I heard. I think it was from it was probably a pastor or reverend minister who shared that. He was reading a book, and it talked about how if you plant onions in a sulfur-free soil, the onion will not burn. It won't burn your eyes when you cut it. That goes to prove that it's the environment in which the onion grows is what, to some degree, determines how much sulfur in it. And it's the sulfur that makes our eyes burn when we cut onions. Some time ago, I told a friend my eyes don't burn when I cut onions, and they made a joke that the distance between the onion and my eyes are very, very far because I'm 6'2". That was a very good joke, but there's probably some truth to it. Anyway, what environment is your relationships thriving? So even if you're single, the question is, what kind of environment do you live in yourself in terms of how you relate with people, maybe to your siblings or your parents or your friends? They all contribute to how the environment in your own relationships will look like if you decide to get married or you decide to settle down. So we're going to talk about a few ideas here that will help you to determine and also help you and encourage you to ensure that you are thriving in a great environment that will also sustain your relationships. So the first thing I want to talk about is, having an environment where communication is open. Being in a relationship or in a marriage where you and your spouse can talk about issues and not feel like it will be used against me, or you won't feel threatened, or you don't feel insecure. There should be security when it comes to talking about issues and bringing up issues. It could be something that is bothering your spouse, that's been on their mind for a very long time, but they have to be able to talk about it freely and knowing that it won't be held against him or her. It won't be used in future arguments. And there's that freedom to talk, of course. It doesn't mean that anything can be said, but things that are within the constraints of developing a healthier and a positive environment could be freely shared. So some of the things that couples can do is practice practice active listening, giving your partner the full attention when they are talking. And this is very, very important, especially today where, we carry our cell phones with us wherever we go. Sometimes I cringe when, somebody's talking and the other person is on the phone. It doesn't create a great environment, for relationships to thrive. And it doesn't also create a great environment for active listening to occur. So we have to make sure that we have that full attention when our spouse is talking. Face your spouse, listen, make sure that mentally you are receiving what your spouse is saying, and that's the first thing that will create an environment of great communication. Secondly, we have to be able to express ourselves honestly and respectfully. We can share our thoughts and our feelings openly, but do so in a way that is considerate to your spouse's feelings. So here, being able to express ourselves honestly is key. If we live under the shadow that I can't talk about what I feel or what is on my mind, it's definitely not a healthy environment. And I think steps have to be taken to address that. And I think in one of the ways that I will say is that talk to your spouse. Look for an opportunity and tell your spouse that when I don't feel safe to talk about certain things, and I would really appreciate it if you can hear me out on those things and assure me that you will listen when I talk about those things. I think being honest and fair, and also being true to yourself when it comes to how the dynamics of the communication in your relationship is the first step in addressing these issues. So let's look into these things when it comes to communication to make sure that it's positive. The way we communicate is very positive. In some homes, they grew up screaming and shouting, and nothing is resolved in a calm way. People have different styles, but the key thing here is that whatever it's being done in your relationship has to serve you well. You have to feel safe. You have to feel cherished. You have to feel that you can speak openly, and you also have to feel that it's a positive environment for you to thrive. So the next environment that we need is the environment of having time, of feeling that my spouse has time for me, And again, it goes back to the point I made earlier about, a lack of time. We're all busy trying to, between work and, obligations with family and friends and community, children, and everything in between. It leaves us very little time to be able to invest in our relationships, and it's important that we push back when it comes to this, because if we don't push back, our relationships are the key things that drives us. It's the only thing we fall back on when we go through turbulent times, and it's important that we create that environment for the time for our relationships to grow. And the way we do that is to make sure that we are making time for relationship and not feel rushed. When you meet with your husband, you don't want to feel that he's in a rush to go on to the next thing, or he can't focus on the time that you're having together. So let's make sure that we are blocking out that mental time to invest in our relationship. And the way we do it is spending quality time together, dedicating time for activities you both enjoy. This could be date nights, weekend getaways, and simply relaxing at home together. I know we're just coming off Valentine. We're still in Valentine's week. Today's Saturday, so we're still in Valentine's weekend today. A lot of people are going to go out for their Valentine dinner who couldn't do that last Wednesday, which was February 14th. So this is a time of year where people invest a little bit of time into their relationship, but it should be something that should keep going throughout the year. It shouldn't only be something that we do in February or we do when it's love season. Let's invest that time in making sure that our partners and our spouses feel my husband or my wife makes time for me. They don't feel rushed. They don't feel you're always, you have something else on your mind. We also have to be present when spending time together, minimizing distraction, work phone, and focus on being there. And one of the clear indications of being present is when you are engaging in whatever your spouse is saying. You're doing active listening. I think we talked about listening earlier. You're listening actively to make sure that you really are not only hearing the words, but you're also receiving the emotions with which your spouse is talking, So let's be present. Let's make sure that we're investing that time into our relationship and not making our spouse feel rushed or the feeling that other things are more important than me or our relationship or our marriage. And the same could be said with our children too, where we have to make sure that, if you have children, make sure you dedicate time for them. I think for children, it's very important that they feel that we make time for them and we are not rushing through to get to the next thing. It's very, very important in making sure that our relationships are thriving in a very positive environment. Yeah. So the next environment is respect. And I think this ties into the two things that we've talked about, because if you respect your spouse, you will communicate with them, you practice active listening, you will be able to speak freely, and you also create time for them. So respect is a very key part of this. Creating a very respectful environment is critical for every relationship. So what do we mean by creating a respectful environment? It means that we show appreciation, we regularly express gratitude. When your spouse does something, you make time to say thank you for doing the laundry. I really appreciate that. Making time for the positive aspects of your spouse and the things that they bring to the relationship. Taking note of the little things. Sometimes we all become complacent in our relationships where your wife always cooks for you, and at some point it begins to feel like the food magically appears from the sky or from wherever it comes from. Maybe somebody will say it comes from Uber Eats. But even that, if your spouse ordered it, I think it's fair and it's decent and it shows respect when you're able to say thank you for thinking about and ordering something for us to eat, So let's make sure that we're showing respect by practicing appreciation in our relationship. And then we also have to make sure we respect differences. We acknowledge that you acknowledge that you and your partner are unique individuals and different perspectives with different perspectives and values. Embrace each other's differences rather than trying to change them or challenge them. Let's not try to change our spouse. There's a funny quote I heard a few weeks ago. I can't recollect where I heard this, but it went like every man when he gets married hopes that or wishes that his wife will never change, and every wife hopes and wishes that when they get married, they will change their husbands. They'll make them the way they want them to, But this is just a joke. But the point here is that we have to make sure that we appreciate the differences in it, our views, our values, and I hope that your values are the same, because that's a key part of, the components of a good relationship. Your values, when your values are the same, it really helps. But the key thing is your view on things, your view on maybe political issues or things of that nature. The key thing here is making sure that you respect the differences. If your spouse likes the food a certain way, or they have a specific view on one topic in politics, it's not an opportunity to put them down or see them as inferior or not command any kind of respect for them. But let's make sure that we do that. And the key thing here is that those aspects of our spouse where they show a different bend than us. We have to also show appreciation for that. Maybe there's something they do very well, even though it's not your style, but the way they do it contributes a lot to creating a very great environment in your home. So let's make sure that we have mutual respect in our relationship. Now, the next item I want to talk about is the environment of support for each other, supporting each other's goals. How do you support your spouse's goals? That's an environment. If you live with somebody who doesn't support your goals or your aspirations or your ambitions, it's hard for you to develop and thrive. So one way we can create a positive environment is to encourage your spouse. If your wife comes and say, I want to go get my PhD, don't say, what do you need that for? Or do you think you can do it? Encourage your spouse. Let her know, I trust you, I believe in you, you can do it. In any way that I can help to make this happen, let's put a plan together to make it happen. It might not happen right at that time, maybe even within that year, but as long as you both agree in supporting each other's goals and dreams, you can make it happen. Encourage personal growth, support your spouse's individual goals and aspirations, and work together to help each other achieve them. Be a team player, be a team member, work together, approach challenges as a team, work together to overcome obstacles and celebrate successes. And this is even more important if you're parents. You have to make sure you approach everything as a team when it comes to issues with your children, discipline, setting limits and all of that. If one spouse is saying another and the other is saying a different thing, children are very smart. They know where the cracks are in the relationship, and how they can get around it. But the key thing here is making sure that we are supporting each other's goals, aspirations, and being a team. Even if we have differences, even when we don't always agree, we can still be a team in areas that we agree to make sure that we are creating that positive environment in our relationship. The next thing I will talk about is creating the environment of shared goals. So when I talk about shared goals here, I'm talking about establishing common goals, things that you both agree on, setting goals for your future, things that you want to do. I was telling my wife not too long ago, one thing that I've always wanted to do is to go on a missions trip where I travel somewhere in the world and help to either build houses or, some kind of project I can do to support people somewhere in the world. I've never gone on a mission trip, and it's something that I would love to go, even if it's not far from where I live, even if it's a 3-hour drive where I can go and support some communities to make life better for them. It's something I'll absolutely love to do. And my wife said, maybe you can look into our church to see if they have some programs coming up. And indeed, we do have some trips coming up. It might be a little bit far than where I want to go, but it's something that I'll definitely be considering for the future. So when your spouse talks about certain goals they have for the future, you have to support them, even if you have no idea how it's going to be done. Even if you don't know how it's going to be paid for, you don't know how you're going to make time to do it, still support them, because that's the first step. It's a step of faith, and that will open the doors for you to figure out how you are going to make it happen as a couple. So this is a key part of it, making sure that you establish common goals. Maybe both of you have goals of buying a house, goal of raising a family, or adopting a child. They are all very worthy goals that both of you should have together and develop together, and make sure that whilst you're discussing this, you don't put your spouse's goals down, or you don't diminish them. Yeah. So plan together, involve each other in decision-making processes, especially for significant life choices. So things that will really change things for you. And again, man, you can just get up one day and come and tell your wife, the German office in my company needs a new director, so I'm going. You just can't do that. You have to make sure that you sit down and talk about it and be realistic. Make sure you make the decision from the perspective of, of course, yourself, how it's going to benefit you, but also take into consideration your wife and your children, if you have children, because you're not just by yourself. All these people in your life play a key part in making you who you are. So that's very vital also in creating that positive environment for your marriage. The next thing is, creating an environment that fosters trust and honesty. Trust and honesty. I can say this enough. Be transparent. We have to make sure that we're transparent. If you have a shared account, make sure there's transparency. You talk about things if you need something, or set thresholds. Some couples have thresholds where they say, if you have to spend $100, don't ask me, just go ahead and spend it. Where we're not hiding things from our spouses, but we're being very transparent about them. Building trust by being open and honest to your partner. Avoid keeping secrets or withholding information. This will not create a positive environment in your home. It brings distrust, which can evolve into other things you don't want in your relationship. Trust your partner. Allow your partner the space to be themselves without unnecessary suspicion or correction, or let them be themselves, because they were themselves when you met him or her and you love them the way they are. So make sure that you are encouraging them to be themselves. Trust is foundational in every healthy marriage. So trust and honesty. Let's be open. Let's be truthful. Let's be honest about everything that we do, especially when it comes to information sharing, things about extended family, things that relate to money, and all those in between. It's a very, very key part of ensuring that we're creating that positive environment in our relationship. So as we round off here, the next thing it's going to be creating an environment of romance and intimacy in your relationship. Make your relationship romantic. I can say this enough. Creating that environment that, when you're home, you can, hug your spouse, you can kiss your spouse, and, make sure that it's a very light and fun environment in your home. There are times that I do understand that, there might be issues that might be going on, something on your mind, or something that it's created an environment where this can always happen. But generally, your home and the environment should be very, very easy to connect. It should be romantic. It should be intimate, in order to ensure that it's positive. Prioritize physical and emotional intimacy, regularly express affection, and maintain a healthy level of physical closeness, holding, touching, kissing. And I've said on this podcast that there's a research that shows that men who kiss their wives every day, they live 7 years longer. Come on, with no medication, you can live 7 years longer. Let's make sure we are holding, we're touching, we're kissing. It creates a positive environment. It creates an environment of joy and peace, and an environment where you both can thrive. Communicate about your needs, your emotional and your intimate needs. Discuss your emotional and physical needs openly and find ways to meet them. And I must say, when your spouse shares an intimate need, it's not an opportunity for you to laugh and make jokes of it. Find ways of meeting the person halfway if that is not your style. Your views are important too, but the point here is not to suppress your emotional or your intimate needs because you're afraid that your spouse won't take it serious. You're afraid that they will belittle you or scoff at you or that kind of thing. It should be a very transparent environment where you can talk about your emotional needs, your intimate needs, and make sure that they are met. And if your spouse can meet you full way, accept what you have, because the truth is sometimes we can get everything that we want, but let's do our best to make sure that we are taking steps to connect emotionally, and we're putting our emotions on top when it comes to how we relate with each other. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is making sure that we create a great environment when it comes to how we handle conflict. It's key. It's a very, very key part of this. My wife and I we teach a class at our church for young couples or couples who are getting married, and one of the key questions they always have is conflict, because they're all anxious. What is going to happen when our first conflict happens? How are we going to handle it? And I think you can talk about it even before you get married. How do you address conflict when we don't agree? How do you want me to react? What do you want me to say? What shouldn't I say? That sets the ground to ensuring that you will handle conflict well. But the other thing here also is that your spouse has to feel confident that if he or she does something, you're not going to blow up and make a scene of a situation that doesn't require that. That assurance is the first step. That that if I make a big mistake. There's a story I believe I've shared here before of a young man who got a call one day saying that he had to go for an interview for a job he's been dreaming and praying and believing God for, and he got a call. He had to go for the interview. So he called his wife and said, look, I drop off some shirts at the dry cleaners. Can you pick them up for me? Because by the time I get home, it's going to be too late. I can't do that. His wife said, no problem. And his wife was home with children. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 children, but she was a stay-at-home mom, busy with children. And sadly, she got busy. One thing led to the other, and she totally forgot to pick up the clothes from dry cleaners. When the husband got home, he wasn't happy. But then, he gave her the benefit of the doubt and said, I understand you're with the children at home, something came up, and I can't imagine how the wife felt, assuring your husband that I'm going to take care of this, and something comes up, she's not able to do it. And the story goes, the husband gave her the benefit of the doubt and said, you know what, I have other shirts, I can quickly, throw something in the washer and dryer, iron it tonight, get it ready. And guess what? He did exactly that. Everything went without a hitch, and they were able to move on. And I'm sure it's something they will talk about for many years and laugh over. So when things like that happen, the way we react to it, the way we handle conflict, your spouse could do something that will really make you upset, but how are you going to react? Knowing that this is my spouse, this is my wife, this is my husband. How are you really going to handle this to ensure that it's not going to create a worse problem than the conflict itself? The way we deal with conflict shouldn't create a worse situation than the conflict itself. So let us make sure that our attitude towards conflict is in place. Talk about conflict even before it happens. Practice effective conflict resolution by addressing issues as they rise, and focus on finding solutions rather than assigning blame. So it's not about what you did or what I did, but it's about how do we move forward? What are the steps we can take to make sure this will not happen again? Or what are the steps we can take to make sure that we have learned a lesson from this? So, These are some ideas that I believe that will help. The last thing I want to add to all of this is that sometimes, in order to create a positive environment in your relationship, it's important to get professional help. There are wonderful mentors and counselors who are very skilled in teaching you tools and equipping you with ideas on how to deal with relationships. And it's important that if you have the opportunity to do so, either through your health insurance or online services, there are a lot of apps like Calm and others that offer various services to help when it comes to dealing with our own emotions, conflict, and communication, and all of that. So let's make sure that we get help if we feel that we do need help. So and I hope that these ideas will help you to create that environment in your relationship. Of course, there are hundreds of others, but these are some of the key ones that I believe that if we're able to master them, it's going to help create that wonderful environment for our relationships and our marriages to thrive. Thanks for listening to us. My name is Akwesi Opong. This is Enjoy Life with Your Spouse, and we will see you again next time.